Noah Renshaw had faced boardroom battles, hostile takeovers, and international scandals, but none of that prepared him for the moment the elevator jolted, groaned, and locked him between floors in a silent, pitch-black shaft. "Great," he muttered, tapping the emergency button. Nothing. His phone. No signal, of course not. The building was old, the kind with stained carpet, flickering lights, and a security system from the last century. He shouldn't even be here. His meeting at the community development office had been a favor to his CFO's sister. A waste of time, now a very claustrophobic one. He loosened the top button of his shirt and leaned his head against the wall. Then a voice echoed through the metal. "Hello, anyone in there?" Noah straightened. "Yes, I'm stuck. Elevator between floors 6 and 7. There was a pause. Then the voice again, female, calm. "Okay. I'm going to try to get the outer panel open. Hold tight." He pressed closer to the door. "Wait, who are you?" "Maintenance, sort of. More like accidental rescue squad." He heard a clang, then the scrape of metal. A moment later, a sliver of light peeked in from above. Through the gap, he saw her messy ponytail, flushed cheeks, and grease on her cheekbone. She was crouched on the floor above, tools in hand. She wasn't wearing a uniform. Just jeans, a faded blue t-shirt, and a utility belt that looked like it had seen better days. "You're not maintenance," he said flatly. She grinned a real, unapologetic grin. "You're not wrong, but I work in this building and you're stuck." "No one else was around, so I figured I'd try." "You're going to break me out of an elevator?" "I've done worse," she said, then disappeared for a second before returning with a crowbar. "I once climbed on top of a vending machine to get my lunch. This should be easier." Noah blinked. "This is insane. Do you want out or not, suit guy?" He laughed, the sound surprising even himself. "Yeah. Let's do this." It took 10 minutes, a lot of elbow grease, and a few very creative uses of profanity, but eventually the doors creaked open just enough for him to climb up and roll onto the floor above. He looked up at her, still catching his breath. "You could have just left me in there. I thought about it," she said with a shrug. "But you looked like you'd melt." He sat up, brushing dust off his slacks. "Thanks, seriously," she offered a hand. "Maya Bennett." Noah Renshaw, her eyebrows arched. "Wait, Renshaw." "Like Renshaw Capital," he stood, brushing himself off. "Yeah." Her smile faded a little. "Right, well, glad you're okay." Before he could say another word, she turned and started walking. "Hey, wait," he called after her, but she didn't stop. He stood there, stunned. "No thank you, coffee." No exchange of numbers. She saved his life, and walked away like it didn't matter at all. What the hell just happened? 3 days later, he was still thinking about her. He'd been in 3 different cities since then, meetings, travel, high-level negotiations, but his mind kept drifting back to Maya Bennett. The grease on her cheek. The way she said "suit guy" like it was an insult and a joke. The way she didn't ask for anything, like she wasn't impressed. No one ever walked away from Noah Renshaw without trying to get something from him, but she had. And now he couldn't stop wondering why. He made a call to his CFO's sister who worked in building permits at the city office. "You know a Maya Bennett?" "Sure, she's a planner. Works 2 floors down from me." "Why?" "She helped me out last time I was there. I wanted to thank her." "Uh-huh, you mean you want to find her?" "I didn't say that. You didn't have to." He showed up at her office the next morning, bouquet in hand, nothing over the top, just wildflowers. Bright, messy, nothing like the usual roses he sent to thank people. She looked up from her desk and froze. "Wow, you really tracked me down. You saved me from elevator-induced madness, least I could do." She hesitated, then accepted the flowers. "These are actually really pretty," he smiled. "I know," she narrowed her eyes. "So what's the catch?" "No catch, just dinner." She laughed. "You think I'm going to go out with a guy just because he got stuck in a box and I pulled him out?" "No," he said, stepping closer. "I think you're going to go out with me because you want to know why I haven't stopped thinking about you since." Maya blinked, thrown. "You haven't?" "Nope, and I don't usually get stuck, not in elevators and definitely not on people." She exhaled, clearly torn. "I don't really do fancy." "Good," he said. "Neither do I, not when it matters." He left her with his card, and this time she didn't walk away without looking back. A few nights later, she stood outside a small wine bar in Midtown, staring at her reflection in the window. She wasn't in one of her usual coffee-stained work shirts. She wore a dark wrap dress that made her feel like someone who might be interesting to a guy like him. He was already waiting inside. When she walked in, he stood immediately, pulling out her chair with a smile that could have melted steel. "No elevator this time," he said. "Don't tempt fate," she replied. They ordered wine and tapas, and for the first time in a long time, Maya let herself laugh. He was nothing like she expected, funny, self-deprecating, and way too charming for her own good. And when they walked out, he didn't try anything. Just held the door open, walked her to her car, and said, "I'd really like to see you again." She didn't say no. By the end of their third date, a rooftop dinner he rented out just so they could see the city lights without the crowd, she was already falling. And he knew it. When he handed her a velvet box with a delicate diamond bracelet inside, she blinked at him. "Noah." "Don't say it's too much," he said softly. "You saved me, not just from the elevator, from everything." She looked up at him, eyes wide. "You don't even know me." "I know I want to." She touched his face, her voice barely a whisper. "You're not real," he leaned in. "I've never been more real in my life." And when he kissed her, she forgot every reason she ever had to keep her distance. Noah stepped out of the black town car and glanced up at the modest brick building. It was a crisp Saturday morning, the kind of day he usually spent at his penthouse gym or reviewing acquisition proposals from his home office. But this morning was different. He was standing outside a local community center on the edge of the city because Maya had casually mentioned she volunteered there on weekends, and he couldn't stop thinking about the way her eyes had lit up when she said it. He pushed open the door and was immediately hit by the smell of strong coffee and floor wax. Inside, kids darted between folding tables stacked with art supplies while volunteers tried to keep some semblance of order. His tailored coat and polished leather boots drew more than a few curious glances. Maya stood near the back, kneeling beside a boy who was enthusiastically gluing googly eyes to a paper plate. She was wearing a faded hoodie with the sleeves shoved up to her elbows, her hair pinned messily on top of her head. She hadn't noticed him yet. A woman with a clipboard intercepted him. "Can I help you? I'm looking for Maya Bennett. She's on craft duty this morning. Do you have an appointment?" "No," he said, watching Maya laugh as the boy presented his chaotic masterpiece. "Just thought I'd stop by." The woman gave him a once-over. "You're not from around here." "No," he admitted, "but I'm trying to be." Maya spotted him then. Her eyebrows lifted and she stood, brushing her hands on her jeans as she made her way over. "You lost?" she asked, her tone neutral. "I was hoping you'd say hi before you asked me to leave. You came all the way here to watch me supervise sticky pipe cleaners." "I came because I wanted to see what matters to you." She tilted her head, arms crossed loosely. "Why?" "Because I don't know many people who spend their weekends helping kids make cardboard dinosaurs when they could be sleeping in." She glanced over her shoulder at the chaos. "It's not much." "Just something I do. It's more than most." She looked at him for a long moment, like she was deciding whether or not to let him stay. "You're overdressed," she said finally. "I've been told that before." "All right, come on then. You can help sort the glitter." He followed her to a folding table where a girl with braids handed him a plastic tub full of sequins and feathers. Maya sat beside him, and for the next hour they worked in companionable silence, occasionally helping a child with scissors or settling disputes over glue sticks. At one point, a boy with a missing front tooth leaned toward Noah and whispered, "Are you her boyfriend?" Noah looked at Maya, who pretended not to hear. "Maybe," he whispered back. The boy grinned and ran off to tell his friends. Maya shot him a sideways glance. "You're enjoying this too much. I'm just saying your street rep is getting stronger by the minute." When the session ended and the kids dispersed, Maya and Noah stepped outside. The sun was lower in the sky now, casting long golden shadows across the sidewalk. "Thanks for not running when I put you on glitter patrol," she said. "I'd stay through papier-mâché and beyond." She laughed softly, and for a moment her guard dropped. "Why are you really here, Noah?" He leaned against the brick wall, hands in his pockets. "Because I like this version of you. The one who forgets she's supposed to be cautious around me." "I'm not cautious," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. You are, and I get it, you've got walls, but I'm not asking you to tear them down. Just let me knock once in a while. She looked away, the wind catching a strand of her hair. You don't belong in my world, she said finally. I wasn't trying to, he said. I'm trying to make space for you in mine. She turned back to him, expression unreadable. That's not how it works. Why not? Because your world has rules, expectations, I don't fit the mold. Maybe I'm tired of the mold. She studied him, and something in her softened. You're not used to hearing no, are you? I'm not used to wanting to hear yes this badly. They stood in silence, the city humming faintly in the background. I have to lock up, she said, stepping toward the door. Will I see you again? She paused, halfway inside. Maybe. Then the door clicked shut, leaving him on the sidewalk, smiling to himself like he'd just won a round in a game he didn't fully understand. That night, he stood on his penthouse balcony, the city spread beneath him. The view had always comforted him, a reminder of everything he'd built. But now it just looked like distance. The next morning, he made a call. Put the community center on my calendar for next quarter. I want to fund their expansion. His assistant hesitated. Under which foundation? None. I'll do it personally. And the public statement? There won't be one. He ended the call and walked into the other room where a jewelry box lay unopened on the counter. He stared at it for a long time, then picked it up and placed it in the drawer. Not yet, she wasn't ready. And for once, he wanted to do this the right way. The wind rattled the windows of the diner as Maya wiped down the counter, her sleeves rolled up, fingers red from the dishwater. She didn't usually take Sunday shifts, but Ellie, the owner's daughter, was sick, and Maya hadn't had the heart to say no. Besides, it gave her something to do. Thinking too much lately only led to one person. Noah hadn't called all week. Not that she was waiting. She wasn't. But every time the bell above the door rang, she looked up too quickly. And every time it wasn't him, until now. He stepped in like he belonged, no coat, just a navy sweater stretched across his shoulders, jeans that somehow still looked tailored, and a paper bag in hand. The wind caught the door behind him and slammed it shut hard, drawing everyone's eyes. Maya didn't move. He walked to the counter and placed the bag between them. You left your gloves in my car, he said. She glanced at the bag. You drove across the city to return gloves. I was in the area. She raised a brow. Were you? No, he said. I wasn't. He waited, but she didn't touch the bag. I didn't know you worked here, he added. I don't. I help out sometimes. Do you ever stop helping? Are you here to ask questions or leave gloves? I can do both. Maya grabbed a towel and focused on a stubborn spot on the counter. You've been quiet. I figured you figured it out. Figured what out? That I'm not a woman who fits into whatever version of your life you were trying to imagine. He leaned on the counter, lowering his voice. I wasn't imagining anything. You're the first real thing I've wanted in a long time. That's the problem. She turned toward the back, but he caught her wrist gently. You don't get to walk away like that again. I didn't walk, she said. You just kept moving in a direction I couldn't follow. He let go. I've been thinking, he said, and I realized something. I've built everything I have around control, my company, my reputation, my time, but when I'm around you, there's none of that, and I like it more than I should. Maya crossed her arms. You don't need me. You want someone to challenge you for a while until the novelty wears off. I've walked away from things that don't matter. I'm still here. A customer called out for a refill, and Maya held up a finger without looking. Her jaw was tight. You don't get to throw words at me and expect me to fall into your life like I've been waiting for an invitation. I'm not throwing words. I'm standing in a diner that smells like bacon grease and burnt coffee because I can't stop wanting to be where you are. She blinked, caught off guard. I'm not asking for forever, he added. I'm asking for the next hour. After that, you can tell me to leave and I'll go, but I won't pretend I'm not already in too deep. Maya looked at him for a long beat, then untied her apron and tossed it onto the hook behind her. Ellie's mom can handle it. She stepped out from behind the counter and walked past him toward the door. You coming? She asked without turning around. He followed. They walked in silence down the street, the city quieter than usual. A few blocks later, she stopped in front of a rusted gate and pushed it open. Beyond it was a narrow garden wedged between two buildings' raised beds, broken benches, a string of dead lights hanging overhead. "I come here when I need to remember things grow again." He took it in, noting the faded sign near the back, Riverview Community Garden. "This yours?" "I don't own it," she said. "But I helped save it last year when the city tried to bulldoze it for a parking lot." He crouched beside one of the beds, where brittle stems poked through the soil. "You saved something no one else even sees. I don't do it for recognition. That's why it matters." She sat on the bench, arms wrapped around her knees. "You're used to things that sparkle, Noah. This place, it's all dirt and patience." "I'm tired of sparkle," he said. "And I'm willing to wait." Maya looked at him, really looked. "I don't trust easily." "I don't either." They sat in silence for a while, the cold biting at their hands. Then she said, "I used to think love was supposed to be all fire. But now I think maybe it's about who brings you peace." He nodded. "Then I hope I can learn how to be that." She stood and walked over to where he sat, her breath visible in the air. "You're not what I expected." "I never want to be." She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small key. "This unlocks the garden gate. I'm not saying it means anything, just that it means you can come back." He took it slowly, closing his fingers around it. "I'll earn the rest," he said. "You're going to have to." As they stood there, the sun broke through the clouds, just a little. Enough to cast light across the garden beds and the promise of green beneath the frost. Neither of them said anything after that. Some things didn't need words yet. Maya stood frozen on the gravel path, her hand still outstretched after unlocking the gate to the garden. Noah had pocketed the key without ceremony, his eyes never leaving hers. There was a question in the air between them, an unspoken challenge neither quite knew how to voice. "I'm hosting a benefit this Friday," Noah said, finally breaking the silence. "Art auction, wine." "Too many people pretending to like each other." She raised an eyebrow. "You want me to come?" "I do." "I don't exactly blend in at things like that." "I'm not asking you to blend in, I'm asking you to show up." "For what?" "So I can smile at your clients while they guess if I'm your assistant or your latest distraction." "No," he said. "So they can see what it looks like when someone real walks into a room." Maya exhaled, her fingers tightening around the strap of her bag. "You're not making this easy." "I'm not trying to," he said. "I've spent years surrounded by people who are easy. You're not one of them, that's why I'm still here." She didn't answer, but she didn't walk away either. That Friday, she stood in front of her mirror, staring at the deep navy dress hanging from the closet door. It had arrived that morning in a plain box, no note, just a tag with her name and a label from a designer she'd only ever seen in magazines. She hadn't told him her size, hadn't even mentioned the event again. But somehow it fit perfectly, as if it had been made with only her in mind. She debated not going 5 separate times, but something had shifted, not just in him, in her. When she stepped out of the cab in front of the glass-fronted gallery, the valet blinked before recovering. She kept her head high as she stepped through the doors and into a crowd that turned to stare, not because they recognized her, but because she looked like someone who belonged, even if she didn't believe it yet. Noah was across the room speaking with a couple in tailored suits, his hand in one pocket, posture relaxed. He saw her immediately. He didn't rush over. Instead, he excused himself calmly, crossed the floor, and stopped just far enough away to give her the chance to walk away if she wanted to. "You came," he said. "I'm still deciding if that was a good idea." He didn't look at the dress. He didn't compliment her hair. He just said, "There's a gallery upstairs. No one's there." She nodded. "Lead the way." They walked in silence up the marble stairs, past a velvet rope and into a mezzanine lined with canvases. The lighting was dimmer, the air cooler. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the skyline stretched like a promise. "I used to come here before any of this," he said, gesturing to the room. "Before the company. When the art was still student work and there was free wine if you knew who to ask. And now they ask me to fund the next wing." She stepped to a painting near the window, an abstract piece in sharp strokes of charcoal and cobalt. "Do you even like art?" "I like what it makes people feel." She turned to him. "What does this make you feel?" He didn't look at the painting. He looked at her. "Like I want to stop pretending I'm okay with not knowing what we are." Something in her chest twisted. "I don't know what we are either." Then let's find out. He stepped closer, but not close enough to touch. You told me once that love isn't fire, it's peace, but I don't think it's either. I think it's standing in the middle of all the noise and choosing someone anyway. Noah, I'm not asking you to change, or to move into a penthouse, or to quit your job and follow me around the world. Good, she said, voice cracking. I'm asking you to come to dinner with my mother tomorrow. That stopped her. Your mother, she's in town, she's terrifying. And she will ask you 1,000 questions. Why would you do that to me? Because I want her to meet the woman who made me stop running. Maya stared at him, caught between disbelief and something dangerously close to joy. You're really not going to make this simple, are you? Where's the fun in that? She stepped forward and reached for his hand. His fingers closed around hers like they'd always been meant to. I don't do perfect, she whispered. I don't need perfect. I've never been anyone's safe choice. You're my only choice. For a moment, the world outside the windows disappeared. The noise, the pressure, the fear of what didn't fit it all dissolved in the space between them. Then she leaned up and kissed him. Not the careful kind, the kind that sealed something in place. When she pulled away, her voice was steady. I'll come to dinner. But if she asks me how we met, I'm not lying. I wouldn't dream of it. And if she tells me I'm not who she pictured for you, I'll tell her I didn't picture anyone until I met you. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. What's that? She asked. He handed it to her silently. It was a deed. To the community garden, her hands trembled. How? I made a few calls, bought the lot from the city under a preservation trust. It's yours now, legally protected. They can't touch it. She looked up at him, stunned. Why would you? Because you save things, and I wanted to save something for you. She threw her arms around him, laughter caught between tears. Who buys a whole garden? I told you, I'm not used to doing things halfway. She didn't say anything else. She didn't have to. Later that night, he walked her home. No car, no driver, no schedule. Just two people under a city sky, not needing a destination to know where they were going. And for the first time in a long time, neither of them looked back. Maya stood on the edge of the garden, her boots sinking slightly into the damp soil. Spring had finally arrived, bringing with it the first green shoots pushing through the earth, stubborn and determined. She bent down to adjust the sign at the entrance. It had been freshly repainted by a group of kids from the after-school program and traced the letters with her thumb. Riverview Garden, protected, permanent. Behind her, laughter echoed as volunteers moved between garden beds, planting, watering, joking. Noah was somewhere near the back, sleeves rolled to the elbows of a worn chambray shirt, helping install a new bench under the old oak tree. He'd shown up early, unannounced, with coffee and a blueprint for a rainwater collection system he'd designed himself. Maya stood, brushing her hands on her jeans. You're going to end up on a city brochure if you keep this up. Noah glanced over his shoulder, eyes catching hers. I'd rather be in your phone contacts under person who's surprisingly good with a wrench. You're not even using the wrench correctly. I'm improvising, like I do with everything else that scares me. She walked over, took the wrench from his hand, and adjusted the bolt properly. You're going to owe me 1,000 favors by the time this day ends. I'm counting on it. As the day wore on, the garden filled with more volunteers. A few of the city officials who had originally tried to shut the lot down had been invited. Maya's idea, not Noah's. She believed in showing people what they almost destroyed, not just telling them. They watched quietly as children planted sunflower seeds and elderly neighbors shared stories over lemonade. Near dusk, as the last wheelbarrow was dragged back to the storage shed, Maya grabbed 2 folding chairs from the supply shed and carried them to the far end of the garden where the light was softest and the air smelled faintly of lilac. Noah joined her, carrying a paper bag with 2 sandwiches he'd picked up from the deli across the street. They ate in silence for a few minutes before he leaned back in his chair and looked up at the sky. I signed something today, he said. Maya turned. What kind of something? I finalized the buyout of my stake in Renshaw Capital. She nearly dropped her sandwich. You did what? I stepped down, sold my shares to the board. I'm officially out. You. Walked away from $1 billion company. I walked toward something better. She stared at him. What are you going to do? I've been thinking about starting a foundation, something small. Focused on urban green projects, community spaces, maybe youth programs. I want to build things that outlast me. That's a long way from private equity, he looked at her. So are you. She didn't respond immediately. The weight of his choice settled between them, not heavy but solid. Real. You're really doing this, she murmured. I already did. Why? Because I don't want to belong to a world that doesn't deserve you. She blinked, caught off guard. That's not a reason. It's the only one that ever mattered. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded envelope. Without a word, he handed it to her. Inside was a letter handwritten, short, simple. I bought the lot for you, but I stayed for me. Maya folded the letter slowly, her throat tight. I don't know what to say. Say whatever you want or don't. I didn't do any of this expecting something in return. I know, she whispered. He stood. Walk with me. They wandered down the garden path, shoes crunching softly against gravel. The lights overhead flickered on, casting a golden hue over the leaves. I'm not afraid of us anymore, she said suddenly. Noah looked down at her. You were. I was terrified of messing it up. Of not knowing how to be part of something that big. You made me want to be smaller, he said. And that's the biggest thing anyone's ever done for me. They stopped beneath the oak tree. The new bench was finished, polished, and sturdy. I kept thinking one day you'd realize I'm not the kind of woman who fits into your lifestyle, she said. I kept thinking the same thing. She laughed softly. So what now? Noah reached into his pocket again and pulled out a narrow box. She took a step back. Noah, it's not what you think, he said. Not yet. Inside was a key, silver, worn at the edges. That's the front door to the brownstone on Gardner Street. She stared at him. I bought it, he said. It has a backyard, room for a greenhouse. And a garage you can turn into a workshop if you want. A brownstone. It's not a penthouse. It's not a mansion. It's a home. One I want to build with you, brick by brick. She closed the box, heart pounding. You're not asking me to move in. I'm asking you to help me decide what color the kitchen tiles should be. Her eyes welled. I don't deserve you. No, he said, stepping closer. We deserve each other. She kissed him slow and certain. The kind of kiss that didn't need promises because it already was one. Later that night, they stood on the roof of the brownstone. The city buzzed in the distance, but here, everything was still. Maya leaned into him, her head resting against his shoulder. Do you think we'll get used to this? I hope not. You know, she said, I never believed in fairy tales. Me neither. But this feels like one. He wrapped his arms around her, pulling her closer. Then let's write one that never ends. They held each other in the quiet, the city lights blinking like stars below, and for once, the future didn't feel like a mystery. It felt exactly like this, a garden that wouldn't be taken, a home built from choice, a man who stayed. And a woman who let herself be loved completely. Forever wasn't a question anymore. It was the answer they'd both been waiting for.